Hi, and welcome to Comedy Recapped. Today we will be talking about A Life Less Ordinary. This 1997 British romantic black comedy was directed by Danny Boyle and stars Ewan McGregor and Cameron Diaz. A couple of angels are sent to Earth to ensure their next love connection case succeeds, as they've been failing for a long time. They follow Celine, a spoiled rich girl, and a janitor, Robert, as they travel and try to extort her father for a hefty ransom while falling in love. Beware, spoilers ahead. In heaven, angels are all tasked with ensuring mortals on Earth find love. It's set up much like an agency or police station, and the captain is a furious angel by the name of Gabriel. He has been reviewing the file of angel partners Jackson and O'Reilly, whose recent cases have ended in divorce or misery. He introduces a new, radical incentive. They must make two humans fall and stay in love, or the two angels must remain on Earth forever, which does not appeal to them. Celine Neville, a spoiled 20-something daughter of a wealthy businessman, is introduced swimming through a pool. She is an incredible marksman, shown off by her ability to shoot an apple off her servant's head without fail. When a loathsome dentist, one of her suitors, proposes marriage to her, she says she'll agree, but only if he'll reenact William Tell with an apple on his head. Elliot's nerves fail as she takes aim with a pistol and grazes him in the head because he moved. Her butler calls for help. Robert Lewis is a poor, understimulated janitor employed in the basement of Celine's father's company. He is writing a terrible, trashy romance novel about the love child of John F. Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe, where his co-workers can guess the ending and mock him for it. His manager joins them in the break room and informs him he's been replaced by a cleaning robot. Despite his complaints, she kicks him out. Later, as he drowns his sorrows at a local bar, his girlfriend Lily informs him she'll be leaving him for an aerobics instructor. Dejected and lonely, Robert goes back home and falls asleep. Robert is finally pushed over the edge when he believes he is being evicted from his apartment. He storms the office of Mr. Neville, his former employer. Security guards run in to stop him, but Robert can hold them off. Celine is also in the room, in the middle of receiving a dressing down from her father, who is ready to cut her off for her continued bad, selfish behavior. Celine introduces herself, distracting Robert enough that he makes the rash decision to take her. The two of them drive to a remote cabin in the California woods. He ties her to a chair, which causes her to be irate, but eventually can slip free. Despite being free, Celine decides to stick around, both for adventure and to get revenge against her father. A religious zealot that lives nearby comes by the cabin, and the two pretend to be together just long enough to convince him not to call the police. Celine concocts an elaborate lie to put him off that Robert is actually a famous singer on vacation, which buys them the zealot's trust. Celine eventually suggests they extort a huge ransom from her father, claiming she's worth quite a lot. O'Reilly and Jackson then pose as bounty hunters and contract with Neville to retrieve Celine and terminate Robert. Robert's first attempt to collect a ransom fails when they're ambushed, but Celine continues to encourage him. They go to a bar and drink while planning out their next move, and Robert is encouraged to sing as a guest at the bar by the neighbor from before. Unwilling to be caught in their lie, Robert sings, and Celine joins in, the two of them jumping on a bar and putting on a show. When Robert wakes up after the dreamlike scene, he is stunned to realize he and Celine have slept together. Robert's second demand for the ransom is by letter, written in Celine's blood. Neville gives O'Reilly and Jackson the money to meet the ransom with Robert in the forest. Much to their disappointment, Robert seems willing to let Celine go in exchange for the cash before O'Reilly stops his getaway. O'Reilly and Celine wait by the car while Jackson takes Robert into the woods to execute him. Before he can, Celine decks O'Reilly, runs into the woods, and knocks Jackson out with a shovel. Celine and Robert escape, and O'Reilly grabs the bumper and rides alone. She points her gun as Robert and Celine jump from the car. Along with the money, the car goes careening off the side of a cliff. Short on money, Celine decides to rob a bank with Jackson's gun. It goes smoothly until a security guard comes after them and shoots at Celine. Robert saves her, pushing her out of the way and taking a bullet to his thigh. Celine drives him back to the city in a frenzy to get Elliot to operate on him. Elliot is weird about Robert's teeth, offering to work on this, but works on him eventually, knocking him out for the procedure after Celine reroutes his attention. Robert is appalled to find Celine playing a sleazy sexual role-playing game with Elliot while wearing a wig when he comes to. Elliot quickly pushes Robert past the limit, and the two devolve into fighting over Celine. In Robert's jealousy, he eventually knocks Elliot unconscious. They drive away, and Celine explains she only agreed to Elliot's strange request so he would agree to help Robert. Hurt by her perceived affront against him, Robert gets out of the car and leaves Celine behind. He gets a job at a nearby bar as a janitor, deciding to give up on Celine altogether. Jackson writes a love poem in Robert's handwriting and sends it to Celine in a last-ditch effort to get them back together. She's overcome with emotion, as no one has ever written her such a beautiful poem before. And she runs to the bar where Robert has taken on a job, saying he's won her back with the poem. She is flattered by the effort and clearly swept up in the romantic gesture. O'Reilly and Jackson begin to celebrate, considering this their victory and their way back to heaven after all this trouble. But Robert won't take credit for the poem. They try communicating through Celine that it's in his handwriting, but he doesn't take the bait no matter how hard they try. He informs Celine he's never written a poem before in his life. And she leaves, dejected and humiliated by how wrong she apparently was. The bartender takes a moment to talk Robert out of letting her go, but she's gone when he runs after her. O'Reilly and Jackson, believing they failed, decide that if they're going to be stuck on Earth, they might as well make their lives bearable. So they decide to hold Celine themselves for the ransom. Robert tracks down their hideout and knocks O'Reilly down, and while struggling with Jackson, he reveals to Celine that he really loves her. In the heat of the moment, the door is kicked down by Neville's butler, Mayhew, who shoots down the two angels. Celine is left alone in the trunk, and Neville and Mayhew drive Robert and the two bodies to the cabin, planning to stage a fake crime scene before burning the house down. Gabriel's secretary in heaven begs him to intervene, but the angel refuses. Instead, he phones God and asks him to do so. While he's on the phone with God, the angels begin to stir, driving Neville to insanity. A neighbor releases Celine from the trunk, and she takes his weapon and runs to the cabin so she can confront her father right in the nick of time. She warns her father to not get in her way, and Neville tries to convince her she can get help for whatever psychotic break she is undergoing. He reveals, here, that this is what he did to her mother when she became too much. She points and fires through Robert's chest. The bullet doesn't touch Robert, going through his heart and hitting Mayhew instead. It leaves a bright light in Robert's chest, and all of the angels above cheer. The two are safe because of the power of love. They realize that all of this was put together by heaven, that love is orchestrated and impossible to understand. They realize fate intervened in their lives and brought them together in their destiny. Robert says he believes because he's a dreamer, and Celine says she is too. They cheer on as they drive off, newly married. Back in heaven, Gabriel frees O'Reilly and Jackson from a pair of body bags. They're congratulated on their successful case despite both being spent from the ordeal and told they can return home. Having come closer over their journey, the two angels hold hands in solidarity, marking a brand new beginning for the two of them. The film ends with a bit of claymation showing Robert and Celine retrieve the money off the cliffside and live out their lives in a castle they've bought in Scotland. And that's going to wrap things up for today. Hopefully you've enjoyed this recap as much as we did. If you like the video and want to look into other movies with us, then be sure to click the like button and subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on. That way you won't miss a single video.